Much Music Live here from Toronto, the center of the universe, as that thing goes. And
yes.
Mr. Anderson, Mr. Wakeman, Mr. Bruford, minus Mr. Howe, who isn't here. Why?
Yeah, he's in a car somewhere between America and Canada.
Like, that's a big, huge border.
Well,
he's just
is.
like somewhere.
Steve drives everywhere.
Why? How come?
He's not that keen on flying.
Oh, yeah.
So he drives everywhere, we fly everywhere, which means that we get the fun things like this, and he's sitting in a car somewhere.
Is this fun?
This is fun,
it's
I gotta ask, because I mean,
it is, yeah.
It's one of those.
It comes with the patch, really.
That's right. I was going to say
like
it's one of those necessary evils that kind of has to.
No, I've got a necessary pleasure. How about that instead? Yeah. We make exceptions for much music.
Oh, thank you for not saying MTV too. I appreciate that even more.
You said it.
You said it.
No, get a lot of people in here to do that kind of thing. So here's a cliche question: how does it feel to kind of like be a creative tour de force again?
Creative tour, remarkably natural.
Really?
In fact, yes. I think in my own head, personally, I hadn't played with John for at least 18 years or something. Thought in my own head maybe I'd build it up bigger than it was going to be.
Really?
Sure enough, after about 5 minutes, I realized business was pretty much as usual.
Yeah.
On with the music.
And on with the music, really. So that was the end of that. Very natural.
Yeah. You guys never stopped being hip, if I can say that.
That's
a lot of bands just like do their thing and finally kind of dwindle off into nowhere because.
Why?
Well, the fickle public.
The fickle public. Well, why are we always here then?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. This is
You don't know why we're always here, Rick. Why are we always here?
I think he's meant to be asking us the questions rather.
You can turn it around.
I think if you do, it's all down to the music. If your music is something that people can always find new things in, then you'll always be around, regardless of what you look like, regardless of how old you get. And I think there's certainly always things in the music. I've discovered stuff in some of the old music that we did when we came to rehearse it again that I actually hadn't really realised was there.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, really, because I've had to learn to play them.
You weren't there for the mix down, were you? That kind of
pass.
I just remember when ELP, Emerson, Lake and Palmer were on tour, like, I mean, eons ago. Oh God, that sounds so bad, awful. This is like a silly question for you. I got to ask you personally. And they couldn't do what it was they did on record because they were using a Moog.
Yes.
A Moog synthesizer, and they had to reprogram the whole thing. Do you ever have to go through that when you guys were touring as Yes?
No, we're sequencer free.
You were what?
We are what's called sequencer free, which means that we don't cheat. Everything that you hear is what we play. There's a lot of bands going around now using sequences or tapes to recreate some of the things they did in the studio that they can't do on the stage. We don't. What you get is what you hear because it's what we play.
Yeah.
And it's very good.
We've always been.
And by the way, and here's the album too. Buy it. Here you go. Get in close. Here, come on. Go on. There. It's a beautiful thing.
No, in answer to your question, in the 70s, you know, technology was very, very slow in catching up with the kind of music that many of us were trying to play. We were trying to jump from one extreme color of sound to another extreme color of sound, and percussion ideas and electronic percussion. It was okay to spend, you know, a few days or a month or two in a studio creating this music, but to perform it on stage in the 70s was sometimes very difficult because technology wasn't quite on the road. Now technology is on the road, like Rick says, and we can really expand our musical sounds on stage to a remarkable effect. It's fantastic.
There are a lot of bands, no offense intended.
Does that
here.
answer anything?
It does.
Oh,
okay. No offense intended here, but there's just there seems to be this this situation right now in the last year. Last year was the year of the female singer-songwriter performer.
Was it? I missed that year.
Yeah.
Where was I? I was on tour.
The Tracy Chapman and Michelle Shock. Unfortunately, there's this cyclical thing.
And now what's happening?
And now it appears that all the great bands from the 70s.
You're the only person who knows this stuff.
No, I think this is... No, there's a million
Well, yeah, but the musicians participating never know any of this stuff.
Well, I think a lot of the bands did get together purely for, you know, for financial reasons and for doing that.
We interrupted. What is this the year of?
This is the year of, I shouldn't say revival, but... that's
revival summer, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we're really in the revival bucket myself.
John wasn't even considering that when he got us all back together again. I mean, John was really considering the musical direction that he was going in, and he felt everybody else was going in.
Part of the reason we are not called Yes and we are called Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe is because we're trying to make a distinction. We are a new group.
And also they want too much money.
We are a new group that's trying to, you know, go in a somewhat different direction to the other band, and that's what we do for a living. You know, you form bands and try and use them to do something creative.
Our big problem is because we were so known for being Yes, what we did with the stuff with Fragile and Close to the Edge. It's for a lot of, not for us, but for a lot of people who followed the band, there is an identity crisis going on. Who am I?
No. This time around, when you guys were touring together, how many years ago? You say it.
17, 18 years ago.
All right. Was it just the, I mean, I know there were different configurations of Yes, but it was basically the four of you on stage.
Yeah.
This time around for the album, there are more members.
Well, Tony Levin's on bass, and we have...
Why is that whole thing about the technology? And
Well, you know, Bill mentioned Tony and Bill have worked together many times, and it just seemed a logical move to bring in somebody with great spirit and a technique which is unbelievable.
yeah.
But it's true, we are carrying 7 musicians as opposed to just the 4 on the front. The reason being, as Rick says, that there's no machinery to help, there's no sequences, therefore at times you need an extra pair of hands to go prang E major 7.
Yeah. Right.
In the same way that an orchestra carries second clarinets, second violins, which make up the whole texture of the thing,
Yeah.
we are like a small orchestra in that way, in a rock shot.
Getting back to this question about this revival thing, which I haven't lumped you in on. A lot
You
of
don't mind.
No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to seem
on it
offensive.
because
We're going to be called Deep Purple next.
But with respect to the Doobie Brothers, and again, no offense to them, but you know, members of the Doobie Brothers, the original ones, were like driving taxis and running pet stores, et cetera, and all of a sudden, it was time to get back together.
That's
now,
not
none of you
But they got
kind
great
of
franchising,
disappeared. You were still.
You know,
You were still doing
We're
like
still
touring
busy
and recording,
making music, yeah.
but doing this, I mean, because you've been at it a lot of years. Like, how do you feel about this? The whole
We've
the
got
tour
20 years
thing?
to go, you know.
Oh, really?
We're just halfway through our careers. Give us a break.
yeah, only just started. Right.
Rock and roll
I was
is an
just feeling-
established art form now. It's been around a long time. It's no longer a prerogative of
Mr.
the
Rick
young.
Wakeman.
No
Yes,
longer a
ladies and gentlemen.
prerogative of the young. It's an established art form, and in 20 years' time, there's going to be 60 and 70-year-old rock and rollers.
Yes.
And hopefully,
By
we're
the way,
gonna be there.
interesting fact: the average age of the Rolling Stones is 46.
Oh, very good.
I heard the new album last night. It's very good.
Did you?
Yeah, very, very good.
Do you have to pay for your tickets to concerts? Do
Pardon?
you have to pay for your tickets to concerts?
Are we
To
getting
our own
close enough?
concerts?
Oh,
Or?
no, we can get in free. Or
Did you? Yeah. Okay, we'll talk more about the new album. Let's do the video for the first release called Brother of Mine here on Let's Be Said. Oh, Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe, and Mr. Howe is not here, he's on the road. This album that you guys did, you did it real fast, didn't you? You did it pretty quickly.
Well, my participation was more towards the end of it. John had been spending probably about the last 24 years of his life getting around to doing it, isn't that right?
Yes, about bloody time as well.
Yeah.
No, we're doing an idea was to get together with everybody individually. So I spent a couple of days with everybody, and then I went to Paris and sort of made a skeleton of the album. And as you were asking before, while the track was on, how do we put the tracks together? You actually sort of structure it. You know, you have an idea of how the structure could work. And the idea is very simply that if the music takes 9 minutes to finish itself,
Right.
then it takes 9 minutes or 10 minutes. And to me, that is the best music you can make. You don't say, okay, it's 4 minutes, we've got to stop, or else it won't get on the radio, or it won't get on much music, TV. But you make music simply because of itself. So I spent 1 month in Paris, and everybody came over for a couple of days to help coordinate it. And then we went to Montserrat in the Caribbean and did all the overdubs. And then we went to Bearsville in New York to mix it. I went with 2 guys called Steve Thompson and Mark Barrera, who are fantastic guys at mixing albums. And it's a sort of new way of thinking about putting an album together. And it was very enjoyable. And I think the finished product is very strong, both sound-wise and musical-wise, you know.
I want to thank
And
all
here
of
we
you.
are going out promoting it.
I want to thank you all, by the way, when I was in radio, I want to thank you all for having great classic songs that lasted 7 minutes, because I could go to the can. But
You know, we
they
bear you in
would be
mind.
referred to at radio stations as classic personal hygiene
And we need
tracks.
another bridge here because he's got to go to the can.
No. When you, after again, different configurations of Yes, when you guys went off and did things on your own for a long time, you would be writing for yourself, so to speak. I'm taking a lot for granted here.
Yeah.
It was really an effort to kind of get back together and say, well, I have a personal demand now that I ask Rick. Like John, you say, I have to ask Rick what he thinks about this, and I have to get his contribution to it, to the songwriting process.
I never felt that at all. It's always been a pleasure to work with good musicians, and I'm looking forward to doing it again one day. No, seriously. So if you're working with guys that are masters of their craft, which there's no doubt about it, these guys are, then it's an absolute pleasure, and it also sometimes can move you in a different direction, a direction you wouldn't think of playing.
I did this on the last Much Music TV.
Oh, thanks. It certainly helps my. It certainly helps my
50
music.
if you missed it, by the way.
It certainly helps. Oh, it's meant to be 100. I have that back now. It certainly helps me musically because I get pushed in directions I wouldn't normally go, which is why I do a lot of film stuff and various things. But if you're working with guys like John and Bill and Steve, it does push you. I find it great.
Mm-hmm. Again, not to be cliche, but a lot of the classic stuff you've done is lengthy. Let's say that. If a producer, and I know the creative thing is very precious to you, this is the song we've come up with. If a producer comes up and he's helping with the album and says, "Now you gotta lop off this," are you so predatory that you'd say, "No, you can't. We can't take 12 seconds off this, and we can't take 45 seconds off here"?
Well, if it's musically viable and the end product justifies the means, then fine. I mean, what we do with, you know, there's a single coming out, as you'll play it in a minute. We haven't seen the video yet, but we're going to see it.
Will.
And this is a 10-minute song, sort of edited down to 4.5 minutes so that we can get it played on the radio. And if it's done properly, we don't mind that. But we don't want to make specifically music for that kind of market specifically, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's an intention. It's an intention. Most musicians fall on one side of the fence or the other. On this side of the fence, you've got the people who design music because you think you'll play out on Much Music, right? There's the other guys who make music because if they don't make music that way, they can't go to sleep at night. They feel sick, they feel queasy, they feel extremely unhappy, right? So they have to make music in that way. On this side is generally pop, on the other side is a sort of musical way of doing it. And this band is on that side of the fence, and the other band generally, yes, the band from which we have all departed, is now really on the formatted side of the fence. The demographics, the advertising, marketing side.
Which
There's
is,
a distinction.
It's no big deal. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's a fact of life, a reality.
It's a fact of life.
Yeah. The fans that on this time around, the fans, are they the entire spectrum, as they say?
I think we're very lucky in the fact that we've just done, I think, 20 shows in America, and so the band has wound itself up to play. You know, we're playing very well. We're putting together a show with some of the classic songs we did from the Close to the Edge times and Fragile, and the songs we're doing on this album. And the audiences are just going crazy. They're having a great time listening to the whole performance of the evening. And you've got 10, 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old people there. It's very hard to sort of differentiate.
Not to be rude, if you guys could hang on for just a second, just like focus on them for just a second. Okay, I'm going over. Stop it! Go away! So, just fans. just fans over there at the window.
See, one of the interesting things is that, which is great, when we recorded Close to the Edge as an album, literally the day we finished it, Bill left.
Yeah.
He never actually played Close to the Edge or on stage. So this is so to a lot of the people who come to the shows, this is a great missing part that they miss. They miss seeing Bill perform these.
Yeah.
And it's great to be playing with him.
Okay, we'll do the dates here. Oh gosh.
Well, we're playing in Toronto,
you're playing in Toronto
tonight.
Yeah, Toronto, the Centre of the Universe, which would be Tuesday. If you're watching Wednesday morning, too bad.
That's right.
On Wednesday in Ottawa, on Thursday in Montreal, and on Friday in the fabulous Quebec City. Any Western dates planned later? Like Western Canada?
No,
dates?
unfortunately
For
not.
next year, this is really a whistle-top store of both America and Canada. It's a reiteration.
Is that a whistle-top store or a
whistle-stop or
a whistle-stop tour?
So
you never interviewed me when I used to drink.
All you wonderful people who live in Hull, and come over to Ottawa.
Yeah, come on.
Because I couldn't believe.
No, you can't get a drink, but come on over anyway.
We played Ottawa last time a couple of years ago. I I was with DS, right? And we were in Ottawa, and there's all these sort of crowds, and they're all coming to see the show and everything. And then we went to Hull, to the disco, and there's all these totally different people.
Yeah, no.
So why don't they come over from Hull and enjoy the show, guys?
All right.
Give us a break.
All right. Please say hello to Mr. Howe.
Certainly will, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Stuck at the border.
Thank you all. Actually, could you guys kind of, in three-part harmony, introduce this new video into that camera, would you? And we're Much Music 24 hours a day in stereo.
You're Much Music 24 hours a day?
Yeah, in stereo.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Well done.
This is live from Toronto, the heart of the universe.
And you're about to hear Order of the Universe by Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe, especially featuring Rick.
Pardon? Rick Pardon on 24 hours a day, Much Music, 24 hours of it. You can hear it in Holland, can't you?
Order of the universe.
Absolutely.
And Merry Christmas as well, don't forget.
Merry Christmas.